This is in the locker room. This is before the game ended. Before the game ended. She comes out in the locker room and posts this. Like, what are we doing?
Sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, is anybody on this team gonna stand up for Caitlin Clark? JC Sheldon grabbing Caitlin Clark all game, clawing at her. It's like tonight was a brawl, folks. Tonight was a brawl, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, is anybody on this team going to stand up for? And Sophie Cunningham.
After witnessing her teammate Caitlin Clark be beaten on the court with a blatantly cheap shot, Sophie Cunningham, who had not been recruited to be a bodyguard, became one. Something broke inside her. In an instant, she transformed from a teammate to an enforcer. The WNBA was also unprepared for the fallout. This is the tale of how the league entered a new era of justice as a result of one player's unadulterated, unreserved loyalty. A form of justice administered by ruthless intimidation rather than referees.
And let's start with the play that set off the entire night. So as you guys can see here, JC Sheldon is guarding Caitlin Clark. She swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin Clark nudges her off because JC stays in her face. And then Tina Charles runs over and is kind of wagging her finger in Caitlin Clark's face. And then Marina Mabrey comes out of nowhere and chucks her to the floor. Now let's watch this in slow motion. Here, JC Sheldon is guarding Caitlin, swipes her in the face. There's one. Going for the ball, swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin's gonna have to start wearing goggles. And then Caitlin pushes her off of her, like, why are you still in my face? Marina Mabrey, bat out of hell, chucks Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark did not enter the WNBA by accident. She had a bullseye on her back that was so large it most likely required a separate zip code and security detail. She wasn't just another highly anticipated rookie when she was drafted. She was the league's proclaimed savior and a cultural sensation. The cash cow is anticipated to reach previously unheard of levels of importance and viewership.
To WNBA Fight Night, or as some people are saying, WNBA Raw. What a game that was. We had it all. We had basketball, we had fighting, we had blonde on blonde crime. Oh, such an epic. Oh, goodness. But at the end of the day, it resulted in an Indiana Fever W. 88-71, taking care of business.
And that enormous celebrity was accompanied with a perilous and sinister reality. The league's opponents all wanted a piece of her. Playing tough defense wasn't the only thing at stake. It had to do with communicating. From seasoned athletes who believed their years of dedication had gone unnoticed to eager young players hoping to establish themselves. Clark was viewed by all as a benchmark.
Well, let's start here. This is, of course, Sophie and Sheldon going down the floor. Sophie tries to wrap her up, and Sheldon gets to the floor, and all hell breaks loose. And Sophie said, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. We'll go. We'll go. So there's that. That, of course, was all a byproduct of this right here, folks. And I mean, when I tell you social media is setting the WNBA on fire right now, not in a good way, that's the understatement.
Since her first game, the physicality has been unrelenting. It was a never-ending torrent of trash talk, aggressive shrays, hard screens, and off-ball bumps. All of them were painstakingly crafted to challenge her poise, frighten her, and demonstrate to her that she wasn't yet ready for their level of play. The WNBA was the subject of persistent and unmistakable rumors. Target the novice. Keep her from becoming comfy. Make her earn every point.
Of course, Marina Mabrey is going to get ejected because that was unwarranted. She literally came out of nowhere and chucked Caitlin Clark. There should be a flagrant one, of course, on JC Sheldon because she swiped her and hit her in the eyeball. Whether it is intentional or not, you can still have a flagrant a flagrant foul called on you, whether you are trying to intentionally hurt somebody or not. But this is what they called, you guys. This is what they called. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabrey, Tina Charles were assessed with technical fouls on Tuesday. Caitlin, Marina, and Tina Charles technical fouls. That's it. Technical fouls. That's it. And JC Sheldon was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul, and no players were.
However, the distinction between a coordinated campaign of outright assault and a competitive welcome to the league moment is extremely small. This distinction was growing more and more hazy for many clubs as the season went on. That building tension was bound to blow up in a nationally broadcast matchup against the infamously tough Connecticut Sun, igniting a battle that would change the definition of team protection.
I feel good, and Sophie Cunningham put me out on a high note, folks. I didn't even say, Ben, calm down, regroup. I didn't even say that. Let's get straight to the play. Everybody, the plays everybody is talking about. First off, Marina Mabrey body checking Caitlin Clark to the ground. JC Sheldon all over her. Riding her. Pokes Caitlin Clark in the eye. Oh man, Caitlin Clark needs to start wearing goggles, folks. Caitlin Clark's gonna need to start wearing goggles. Bumps up on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark says, "Get your hands off me." And then here comes Marina Mabrey. Boom! Exploding Caitlin Clark like a safety coming downhill in the end.
The actual event seemed both cruelly inevitable and startlingly abrupt. Anger and frustration in a perfect storm. JJS Sheldon of Connecticut started it off by protecting Clark with her trademark taunting, tight defense. Then, however, Clark was sent reeling back by a blatant, purposeful raking across her face, not at the ball. With a look of frustration, Clark nudged to make room. Any player attempting to pull an opponent out of their bubble will typically react in this way. That would have been the end of it in a typical game. However, what transpired next turned the physical play into a blatant assault. Suddenly, like a heat-seeking missile with a personal grudge, Marina Mabrey, a player who wasn't even in the original sequence, charged in.
About a minute and a half into recording this reaction earlier, with 1 minute left, and all hell broke loose between JC Sheldon and Sophie Cunningham, and it is very clear the Indiana Fever, some of these girls on this team are finally fed up. Once again, WNBA, we're not talking about your basketball. We're talking about the WNBA, WWE Raw circus that you got going on right now. And we all know this incident with Sophie stems from the incident that was clearly not handled correctly by the WNBA and the referee.
No effort was made to play the ball. Her behavior had nothing to do with basketball. With shocking force, she squared up, lowered her shoulder, and threw Caitlin Clark to the ground. Simply put, it was a cheap shot, an obvious, insulting, and dangerous act that was entirely motivated by intimidation rather than competitiveness. The arena became abruptly tense when the whistle blew, a tardy shriek. The audience let out a gasp. The harm was done, and commentators were suddenly rendered incoherent. There was a general outrage on the Indiana Fever bench. However, a fuse had just been irrevocably ignited for one player in particular. This was no longer only a hard foul. It was a disrespectful statement that would require an explanation.
All right, enough is enough. At some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. It is something that since the beginning, I've kind of backed off on because physical play is a part of sports. Going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their job.
Something appeared to break inside Sophie Cunningham as Caitlin Clark struck the hardwood. The change was nearly visible in her eyes. A shift from a competitive mindset to a ruthless rage. This was more than a game now. She had just been caught off guard by her teammate, the undisputed leader of their squad, and the hotly contested future of the entire league. Cunningham's face solidified into a mask of icy resolve while the other people on the bench and in the court watched in a mix of shock and rage. Unofficially, her job description altered at that one powerful moment. She was more than just an Indiana Fever forward. She was now the personal security of Caitlin Clark, a self-appointed angel of protection that enjoys taking revenge.
Or to Kathy Engelberg, are you going to step in and do something about this trash that's going on? Players are getting assaulted on the floor. Like, come on, bro. Caitlin Clark could have really got injured right there, y'all. She could have really got injured by these haters, these jealous, hating players. They just jealous and hating, bro. She didn't even get ejected.
It was a profound change that happened in silence. An unspoken pledge that this contempt from the DMN will not continue. It was impossible to uncross this line. The officials, the league, and particularly the opponents were unaware that Sophie Cunningham had recently started a new position. Enforcer, making sure everyone in the arena and those watching at home understood the new rules and conditions of interacting with her star player was going to be her first task as her shift had just started. There was no more room for peace. Now the goal was retribution.
Caitlin Clark, please leave this league and let it crumble. Please, this league does not deserve you. All this hate from these black people, all this hate from these lesbians, these people in the media, just go play basketball somewhere else. Your fans will follow you. We will follow you wherever you go. But let this shit crumble and burn to the fucking ground, man. Let the viewership drop below 50%. Let them lose hundreds of millions of dollars again, man. Let them go back into fucking irrelevancy. Nobody giving a damn about none of these players. Just leave.
Sophie wasn't the kind of player who would wait for the league administration to do a post-game review or submit a formal complaint. She thought that communication should be much more immediate, physical, and direct. She waited patiently, allowing her rage to build until the right moment arrived. And it did. The target appeared later in the game. The player who started the entire awkward scene by slapping Clark in the face was JJ Sheldon. Cunningham took the lead as the two fell to the ground. There was nothing random about it, even though it was a frenzied tangle of limbs and a physical altercation that soon turned into a full-on brawl. Sophie's message was plainly and brutally explicit.
Nah. Enough's enough, bruh. Enough is enough, bruh. What is going on? WNBA, y'all need to get this under control. This is ridiculous. Marina Mabry, you just put yourself in the DJ Carrington box. You dirty slime ball player, you come and blindside Caitlin Clark. Marina Mabry assaulted and tried to fight Caitlin Clark today. This is ridiculous. WNBA, Kathy Engelberg, do something. Do y'all want to go back to 55 to 60% of the people not watching shit again? I normally don't cuss in my vlogs, but forget that. This was rushed.
I'm not having it. Her body language made clear. Right now, we can go right here. In a direct and deliberate act of revenge, she was giving Clark the receipt for the earlier shooting. The Connecticut Sun squad as a whole, as well as any other teams in the league that could be observing, will all receive this message in addition to Sheldon. The days of their rookie being handled like a punching bag with no repercussions were finally over. From now on, Caitlin Clark would respond to any and all hostility with an instantaneous, painful, and personal reaction. By the sheer will of one player, rather than the officials, a new standard was being established.
What happened in this game, but first, let's talk about Sophie and JC. All right, JC Sheldon. My goodness, dog. My goodness. Now, honestly, I felt like Sophie might have wanted a piece of JC after the Caitlin Clark and JC kind of scuffle going on, right? Then this happened, okay?
The league's perplexing and insufficient reaction to the initial incident was what escalated the situation and, to be honest, what many saw as justification for Cunningham's behavior. Following Maber's reckless and obvious shove, analysts, players, and fans all anticipated a harsh and immediate penalty. It looked like an instant ejection. In addition to being justified, a suspension seemed essential to keep everything under control. The official decision, on the other hand, came down like a wet firecracker. A total denial of accountability. Tina Charles, Caitlin Clark, and Marina Mabry were all given simple technical fouls. That was it. Mabry, the obvious aggressor who suddenly appeared to level a player, was permitted to stay in the game.
Caitlin Clark on the receiving end of something, and it's not called correctly. In fact, she gets a technical foul after getting poked in the eye and then shoved to the floor, and Marina Mabry doesn't even get thrown out of the game. It's basically open season on Caitlin Clark, and the special whistle that she supposedly gets goes in the other direction. Flagrantly so. They got to put it to an end. I mean, she's the most valuable player in the league in the most literal sense. And somehow she gets the opposite of superstar treatment.
The WNBA issued a dangerous message after JJS Sheldon only received a flagrant 1 foul. Caitlin Clark's season was open, and the officials weren't going to stop it. Sophie Cunningham assumed leadership after the Indiana Fever were compelled to defend their own star as a result of that failure. She evolved from a teammate into a formidable enforcer, warning every opponent with her presence, gaze, and positioning. Touch Clark, and you deal with me. Where there had been aggressiveness, her loyalty turned into a weapon, causing fear and reluctance. Players had to determine whether a cheap shot was worth the consequences, and coaches had to reconsider their game plans. By sending a strong message that anyone who tries to target Clark will now have to face the sheriff, Sophie's silent but powerful stand changed the dynamics of the league.